Fellowship for pursuing his doctoral research. Currently, he is working as an assistant professor in the Department of Information Technology, NIT, Surathkal, Mangalore. He has published a research-oriented textbook named Quality of Service Aware Routing Protocol. He is the technical expert committee for the Smart City projects called E-Library and Centralized Command Center in 2 districts of Karnataka state. He is also the technical committee member of the Regional Academy Center for Space, sponsored by ISRO in NIT. His collaborations include Central Queensland University, Oncology Department, Kasturba Medical College, Smart ICT Solutions Private Limited, with AG Hospitals, Mangalore, India. His research interests include blockchain technology, IoT, 5G, and beyond. We welcome you, sir, for today's session on behalf of Department of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering. The session is on security in sensor networks. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thanks for the nice introduction. That was a good start as well with a good song. So always, that energizes, us. And let me share my screen first. Panel members.
The screen is visible, sir.
Yeah. Can you see the screen, please? Panel members. Panel members, can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just I changed the slide actually. Sometimes it will get stuck up. That's what I thought of checking. Yeah. Very good afternoon. So in this session, we're going to see a new technique called as physically unclonable functions, and it is called as puffs. Okay, and it's basically so hardware security. Okay, so and if I say security, there are two verticals basically: data security and hardware security, or device security, whatever you call it. Okay, and data security is one where once the data comes out of the device, then you're protecting it. Okay, so in the real world, which is vulnerable, going to protect it in the internet basically. And the other security is hardware security, where you are protecting your device itself. Okay, so if device is secure, everything will fall into its places. Okay, so that is what. If device itself is not secure, so can you imagine, like so how can you say trust the applications running on those devices? So that is my question here, and based on that, entire session has been planned. Okay, so this is so one of the recent work which attracted many researchers as well as unclonable functions. We call it as puffs basically. And so this puff function, using this puff function, we can secure, okay, so our hardware, and not necessarily sensors, which is of our topic of interest on today's session. And you can apply puff equally for other devices as well. It can be your mobile, it can be your washing machine, it can be your laptop or desktop. It can be anything. So let me restrict myself for the sensors, and invariably I'm using sensors and IoT devices here and there. Because sensors have moved up to IoT devices now. Okay, so but basically all those are sensors only. So connecting all those sensors, we have come across IoT devices. So that is a glimpse of this today's session. And so hardware security, so that's what we are concentrating on. So coming to WSN, so wireless sensor networks. So WSN has improved the quality of our life, right? And so don't get surprised. Swiggy and Zomato delivers foods to you using drones. Okay, so it will not be a surprise. And so And so if you take some more examples, like if you go to gym, so definitely that treadmill and that climbing machines and all. So all those machines are sensor enabled nowadays. Okay, and if your heartbeat goes uh, just below the threshold, automatically those machines will stop, right? So those things invariably we are dependent on those sensors, and so definitely, so it has improved the quality of our. And so this WSN, so in line with Industry 4.0, a lot of changes have done. And earlier, when sensors were introduced, so when they were amateur, so now, so what you can see the sensors, there are a lot of difference you can find. And so the global acceptance of sensors, very soon we found it out. The market has very well accepted sensors in industries. So wherever you go, in industries, and in the campus, in the roads, in the building, wherever you go, so you got sensors. Okay, you cannot escape from that. And the study says that so by 2025, 75 billion IoT devices or sensors so will be connected to the right? So if I say 75 billion sensors, so it's only sensors I'm talking about. So apart from these sensors, we got our laptops, we got our mobiles, and we got our printers and all those things. So 75 followed by 9 zeros. So those many devices, how to manage those devices? That is a biggest challenge for the real world as well as to us, the researchers. And just imagine the IP address problem as well as bandwidth problem. It's a lot of scope is there, research scope is there. And and if you see today's application, it is equipped with sensors only. So you can easily trace and track where exactly your product is, right? So whenever you order something over Amazon or anything, so sitting in front of system, so you can track like so where exactly your product is, right? And basically healthcare, so a lot of smart watches and a lot of health checking devices have come down, and the location information. So sitting here, you can check the their deer and deer ones, and tracking devices, right? So tracking devices, many smart watches have come that can track that can track pets. You know, the list goes on actually. So just have to mention some of the important, very widely used applications where sensor plays very vital role. And another thing, buzzword, which from last 5 to 10 years, so which is changing the city as well as which is changing the life of everyone is smart city. Okay, so because of smart city, if you go on road, so like the sensors are deployed and the gas pipes and all those things. So these smart city applications, where sensors can be applied. Okay, so that is the thing now. And so because the requirement for sensors are going up, and parallelly the security threats are also growing. So that is the concern over here, right? The sensors requirement are going up, and parallelly the security threats are also growing. That is the concern. And the irony is, at one side, sensor network provides security, right? And at the other side, sensor network itself needs some security, right? So, touching sensors are there, and speed checking sensors are there. So there are different sensors you can encounter in your day-to-day life. So these sensors are basically to protect us. So, but on the other hand side, so these sensors themselves require some security, right? So that's what, and they need security to provide security to us. So Intel, that's an Intel actually. So if we take your sensors properly, so definitely it will protect us. That is the concept here. And so what 19, so 2.9 billion attacks. So it's a real world attack what we are discussing actually. So 2.9 billion attacks sensors as well as IoT devices, right? So and when it compared to the 2018, so it was so three folds more actually, three folds higher than the 2018 attacks. Okay, so it is in 2019 and the latest the statistics we don't know, so nobody have done a survey, but in 2019 it is three folds, and probably 2021 probably it might be five folds or six folds definitely. One number of sensors are deployed and sensors are easily accessible, and that's why the threats will be definitely it will be more. So that is a concern over here. So that is why data security is one part and device security is another part, and device security we are concentrating now using puffs. Okay, so now and and the security breaches, let us see some real world examples, so that which opened you know which opened eyes of many researchers as well as industries to come out with a novel method to secure the devices. The very first one is okay. So before that, so if I say security breaches, the most um, uh, sensors are counterfeit ICs. Okay, so counterfeit ICs means the duplicate ICs in your sensors, in your device. Okay, so these duplicate ICs have got a catastrophic effects. All of a sudden, something goes wrong and everything goes down. You would have seen in the movies, right? So all of a sudden, something goes wrong and all will be in standstill. All cars and all traffic will be in standstill. So such things can happen. So because of counterfeit ICs, and these counterfeit ICs, it might be knowingly or unknowingly, it would have been inserted in your device, or sometimes. Okay, so as adversaries would have put that counterfeit ICs in your device. In your device, might be interacting with the adversaries, and adversary might give some command to your device to act something else. Okay, so you are expecting something from your device, but actually it is acting something else. It is giving output in a same different manner, something like that one. So those things can happen, counterfeit ICs. Okay, and so we may not know even the counterfeit ICs exist in the device. Suppose take your mobile itself. You never know whether IC is present in your mobile is original or not. Never know. If you take a laptop, so there is a tag of well-known companies, but still, whether, when you buy a washing machine and when you give it for services, when you get back those devices, are you sure the ICs will be proper ICs will be there in your device? The original ICs will be there in the device? That is a question. Okay, so that is a security part here. The hardware security and the sensors security. So that is what. And so here one thing, so the examples what I gave was real world examples. And sometimes what happens is the sensors what you deploy. Okay, so that will be in open air actually. So it will be accessible by anyone. So you could deploy sensors in the street. Okay, so just for checking the movements of the pedestrians. And those ICs are easily, those sensors can be the adversaries can do anything with those sensors. They can replace the ICs. They can replace the entire device with some other device, something like that. It can happen. So that's what I'm concentrating here. And so the critical infrastructure applications, for example, for healthcare, military, and food. So these are all critical infrastructure applications. And if the sensors are not good, okay, if the sensors are compromised in such applications, definitely, so you'll have a catastrophic effects. So you never know. You cannot imagine. Okay, so what could go wrong? So one of the example in 2018, and so that affected. So because of some not sure exactly on which device, which product it happened. But by somewhere I remember, like, so it affected food supply chain actually. So because of wrong, sensor malfunction. And there will be an economic loss, definitely. So there'll be a loss of name as well as financial loss as well for the company. So if you find that your mobile is does not have a proper ISIS or good ISIS or original ISIS, definitely. So you got to reject the other products from that company, definitely. There will be economic loss as well as there will be a loss of name as well as fame. And so some of the examples, let's see. So hope you remember this one, WannaCry. It happened in 2016 or 17 somewhere, and where it used to seize your system and unless you pay some ransom, allow your system to work properly or run properly. That's WannaCry. It was very famous, and nearly lakhs together systems were affected. Okay, so that is one malware, and the second one is Petya. Okay, so it exploited the third-party software present in the device. Okay, so WannaCry basically it was from USA. So and Petya, so it exploited the third-party software present in the device. Okay, so in your device, probably third-party software will be there definitely. So if you buy if you buy a sensors, definitely you may have to put some third-party ICs or SIM cards or SIM modules or anything. And that third-party software, so definitely. So I mean, third-party software was exploited. Okay, the security breach, and that was called as Petya. So basically, it happened in Ukraine. Yeah, Ukraine. So in Ukraine, it started and it spread across all the UK, and the severity was more. And the last example, what I'm covering here is the DIN cyber attack. So it used to attack the DNS, you know, this one, domain naming service, right? DNS. So last 1 month back also, the Facebook, it was not working for nearly 3 to 4 hours. And lakhs together, no, crores together loss was there for that company because of DNS now. Okay. That was also gone. So the DIN cyber attack, you know, it's a attack which affected or which destroyed DNS basically. So domain naming service basically it maps the MAC address as well as IP address. No, not MAC address, IP address as well as the domain names. So for example, google.com. So google.com will be mapped with the corresponding IP address. If IP address itself is not matched, the router will pass the packets to the corresponding destination. That is the question. So like this, there are some real world examples which gave an alarm to the academics as well as the proper to give a proper security for the hardware devices. And one of the example, we just see this one, so which which really it was a like what do you call, so eye opener for the academics as well as researchers to come out with a proper security algorithm is the Bloomberg hardware hack. Okay, so it's very famously called as Bloomberg hardware. It happened in 2018, so it was called as hardware trojans. Okay, so hardware trojans means the foreign ICs. We call it as foreign ICs. So what happened is one of the very famous well-known company. So it purchased a device. Okay, so this is a device basically. So it purchased a device. One, sorry. So it purchased a device. So this is the device for some reasons. This is the device for some reasons they purchased it, and so everything was going good. And after some time, they found that the device what they purchased it was compromised. So can you imagine what is wrong in this device? Can you imagine in this device? You cannot. Okay, so there are so many PCBs, so many ICs, so many devices. Just see this one. So how people have found out the ICs. Can you see this one? That's a very small foreign IC. very, very small. So the size of rice grain. So that was a security breach in that device, and that device was purchased by a very famous company, and it was employed in the devices, and it created a chaos in the real world actually. So can you see that very small, very very small hardware, so which was inserted in the device, and so it was compromised later. The network was completely compromised. Okay, so that is why. So it was very famously called as Bloomberg hardware hack. You just not just Google that. So this is an element which to secure our sensors, because day to day, so we are seeing sensors, and day by day, so more and more we are depending on sensors. Okay, so that is what. And now sensor security, and so data security as well as hardware security, as I said. So data security is, once the data leaves the hardware, so then we are protecting it before it reaches the next end. And hardware security. So data security, it's a communication security. So we also call it as a communication security. Encryption and decryption, secret key based actually, basically. Okay, so we're going to use PKI. Okay, so public key infrastructure, as well as electric. So encryption and decryption is the most common thing, so which we encounter. So in the data security, and PKI, advanced encryption scheme, AES, and elliptic curve ECC. So that's also very commonly used. And among those, PKI, public key infrastructure, public and private key space, asymmetric key security, most widely used, where public and private keys will be used, and they are very, very sensitive. So that is the thing. They are very sensitive. Though private keys are stored securely somewhere, but somehow we can hackers can hack it. And, so usually stored in non-volatile memory of the device. So with respect to devices, so if you want to check whether the device is good or what, usually what you do, you want to put a key. You want to store those keys in the device, and whatever it communicates, and that key, that data will be encrypted with that private key. So that is the thing usually. And those keys are stored in the device itself. Okay, so those keys are stored in the device itself, and whatever the data that device will encrypt. Okay, so using that private key. So since these private keys are stored in the device itself, okay, so it is vulnerable. That is the point. So what it as electronically erasable ROM. Okay, so in that these keys will be stored, and so it's easily, once you get the device, so easily you can get it actually. You can extract it, and you can come to know what is the secret key, what is the private key. So that is a problem here. Okay, so if anything is stored on the device, so always it can be extracted, always you can get it. And so it is very much susceptible. So because sensors, we cannot secure the sensors actually. Everywhere you can find the sensors, and it's easily accessible. So that is what the physical and software protection. So we call it as WBC. So white box cryptography. So that is one thing what the people are working on. Using software, we are protecting the hardware, but the efficient one is PUF. Okay, so physically unclonable functions. So you might ask me, what about conventional security? So why we cannot use conventional security to secure the hardware devices? Okay. Conventional security is sensors. I'm sorry. This is sensors. Sensor devices are resource constrained devices. Okay. So they are resource constrained. They are tiny devices. So they are tiny devices. So usually low cost designs. So it has got a low profile. Usually we call it as low profile devices. With the low profile devices, and the conventional security algorithms, which are very resource hungry, so we cannot use it in sensors. So sensors very requires higher resources. They are resource hungry algorithms. Therefore, it is not suitable for the sensors. Okay, so because sensors have got very less energy, right? And so if you look at a hi-fi algorithm which requires more energy, the sensor definitely so it will burn out its energy very soon than expected. So that is like algorithms, I mean to say. So those algorithms cannot be applied for securing the hardware, sensor hardware. So hence, so other security techniques for WSN are being explored. Okay, so that is it. And coming to the hardware security, just see this one. This is one sensor. What we got. So this is one sensor, and how to protect this sensor. That is the next portion. So hardware so because hardware anybody can get it and can do the advisory or the he can he can do anything with that. That is the threat actually. And so the most commonly found threat is cloning and hijacking. Okay, so cloning in the sense we want to create the adversaries are going to create the same type of device. So like this, what we have found, the same type of device they're going to create and they're going to insert in the real world or they're going to insert in the network. You will never come to know so whether that device is genuine. And sometimes what happens is hijacking the device and making sure that it won't give a proper reply or making sure that adversaries object is and so all these things happen because of gray market. So gray market is nothing but a black market. So what we call it because of this, the counterfeited ICs as well as cloned ICs. So different, the other, no, I can say non-original products have come into picture. So we got different names for these ICs. So I'm talking about ICs in the sensors. Okay. If ICs in the sensors are compromised, what could happen? So that is my thing here. So recycled ICs, we call it as recycled ICs or duplicate devices, hardware trojan, pirated products, copycats. So we got different names for these things. So these things, I mean, the names goes on actually. Okay, so different articles, different cases. So these are counterfeit ICs with different names. Okay, so all together boils down to same meaning. Okay, non-original products, counterfeit ICs. Okay, so that's what. And it's gradually increasing. The threat is gradually increasing because the sensors day by day we are depending on sensors, and day by day the number of sensors are increasing in the real world. And sensor devices are easily targetable. So that is the thing here. So because everywhere you can find sensors and it's easily accessible, so naturally they will, it's easily accessible. That's what I mean to say. And industry as well as academia, so they are going hand in hand to stem this tide. Okay, to and the counterfeit of a sensor device can happen during any stage of its life cycle. Okay, so remember this one. The counterfeit of a sensor device can happen during any stage of its life cycle. So first one is during manufacturing. So during manufacturing, the wrong IC can be put into the sensors. So knowingly or unknowingly. Okay, so most probably unknowing, most probably knowing. I mean, not in manufacturing, then while in the field. Okay, so during here, so definitely, so knowingly some ICs will be inserted. Bloomberg Bloomberg hack in 2018. That is knowingly some rice grain size IC was introduced in the device, right? So just like that, while in the field, so we can introduce some sensor. And the last one is most common is supply chain. So during in the supply chain, so these sensors will move from so one hand to another. There are many players. There are manufacturers, there are warehouse people, there are supply third party suppliers, retailers, wholesalers, and at last customers, end users. So it has to go many stages, and at many stages, many handover will happen, ownership transfer will happen, and so there is a threat like okay. So during that time, so probably the counterfeit ICs can be introduced in the sensors. So this is one survey what how counterfeit is affecting the real world. The pharmaceuticals also is facing this threat, and the jewelry, and so our region of interest is this one, 12%. Okay, so electrical machinery and equipment. Okay, even watches, footwear, clothing, articles of leather, and all those things. So here, so 12% is a threat now. So it happened in 2021. The survey was done in 2020. Now it is 2021. No, 2019. I'm sorry. It happened in 2019. So now the study would have increased more than 12%, right? So that is the threat what we are seeing now. And so usually what happens is hardware authentication. So as I told you in the beginning, so public and private key security, usually we use that, most commonly used technique. And whenever this asymmetric key encryption is used, so there will be two keys. One is private key as well as public key. Public key is known to everyone, and the private key, as name itself indicates. Now, usually what happens is these keys will be stored in the sensors itself. So that's what I've shown in this diagram. Okay, so you can see this. Okay, so memory, small memory in the sensor. So in that sensor, we're going to store the keys. Okay, so now just say this one. So storing keys in the device itself, right? And so there should be a memory in each device specifically for storing keys, apart from other buffers. So we should keep one memory for storing these keys itself. You just imagine sensors are very tiny. Okay, sensors are very tiny. They are resource constant devices, energy constant devices. Over and above that, we are dedicating some amount of memory for storing the keys itself. So additional hardware in the device, that is EEPROM, or we call it as flash memory as well. So using this one, so using in this memory, we're going to store these private keys. Okay, and whatever happens, so whatever the data comes out of this device, so this device will encrypt it. So using this private key, and that is the signature of that device. So whenever that data is received by some other device, so it will check whether it is signed. Definitely. If it's if it sees this signature, definitely. So this device is genuine. Okay, this sensor is genuine. So that's what that's how we can check whether device itself. So it is expensive because we are giving a separate hardware. Okay, so in terms of EEPROM or flash memory for storing the devices, that means it is expensive. Okay, so to store the keys in the device sensors. So now see this one. Okay, now see this one. Okay, so one sensor, and it wants to communicate with the server. Okay, so supposing that sensor is communicating with the switch. This is vulnerable, right? So this is very much vulnerable, and you never know, how many people are there and whether they are, good or bad. It's a combination basically. And at last, it receives a server. Server will be having one more key, so it will decrypt it and it will check whether the device is genuine or what, based on the key. Okay, so based on the data encryption or based on the signature. That's what I think. Based on the signature by that device. This is the usual procedure. So where the communication happens this way, and communication. So reverse communication can also happen. So which goes to servers that is vulnerable. So entire device can be cloned. So this is one thing what you should look into. So entire device. So this device what we got. So entire device can be cloned as it is like. So along with EEPROM. Okay, so remember that one. Along with EEPROM, along with flash memory, entire device can be cloned as it is. So these adversaries are always one step ahead of us. Always remember that. The entire device can be cloned, and sometimes keys can be compromised in the internet. Okay, sometimes. So keys can be compromised. So when keys compromised, another device some other device comes here, and this device communicates with the server and with the same key. Okay, so using this key. So now, so server will assume that, so this is also the original device, right? This is also original device, and it will accept the data and it acts accordingly. And that is a threat. That is the thing here. And because of all these reasons, so where the device itself is very vulnerable in the internet, and the keys, storing keys in the device for the checking this hardware for the genuinity of the sensor. So, as well as we have to store keys in that hardware. Hardware can be cloned, and it's basically it is vulnerable. That's what. And so researchers have come, they found that it is not the efficient way, okay, so to check the genuinity of the sensors, genuinity of the hardware, what is there in the network sensors. So now for that reason, people have come out with one function called as PUFs, so physical functions, okay, physically unclonable functions. It is a hardware security, and this PUF function you can check so whether the device is genuine or what. Yeah, it can be your mobile, it can be your desktop, it can be its a pen, it can be anything. Okay, so you can check using PUF function the genuinity of the device. Okay, just think that. So if hardware itself is compromised, then all the applications sitting above it will be definitely vulnerable, right? If hardware itself, so then all the applications run. I'm sorry. If all the applications running above it, okay. And so each hardware has its own unique characteristics. Remember that one. Each hardware has got its own unique characteristics. For example, the startup values of the memory. Okay, so let me throw some light on it. So we human beings, so we got a unique characteristics, right? And supposing that something, a stray dog chases me, so we got a unique behavior actually. Either we stand and defend, or we will run away. That's our unique characteristics basically. Or just I give an example, and something happens. We behave in different way, and the same thing happens multiple times. Then we will get to and we got a learning capability. We learn it, but these devices are dumb. Okay, so these sensors and all other electronic devices are dumb products, and they won't learn. Okay, so they behave exactly in the same fashion. Okay, they exhibit unique characteristics. Okay, unique characteristics for a given situation. For example, when you boot up your system, when you boot up your mobile, when you boot up your printer, anything. So it will even sequence of data actually zeros and ones in terms of. So if you read the data in the logic gates in the ICs, you'll get a unique characteristics. Okay, so it's a unique actually. That is with respect to that device. For example, my mobile itself. As soon as I keep it for charging, so it gives a data actually. It gives a unique data. And as soon as I reboot it, as soon as I start it gives a unique data. Similarly, the sensors. When the sensors are powered up, okay, so when the sensors are powered up, starting values of the memory will be unique, and that is unique for each and every sensors, because each and every sensors, the gates and the PCBs are entirely within that. So no two sensors can have a unique characteristic, can have a same unique characteristics. No, it's not possible at all. So though the system what I'm using is, and both of us we are using same system from the same manufacturer, and if I apply PUF, okay, so physically unclonable functions to both of our devices, the response, okay, the response what I get will be entirely different. Okay, so that is the thing. So startup values of the memory. Okay, so these characteristics will be exploited to implement the puff. Okay, so based on that, so we will identify a system. For example, so this device. So we will read the startup values of this desktop and we will store it in temporary. So we got it back from the service. Now, so we will expose that device for the same situation, startup value. For example, if I start it as in a if I boot the system, it should exhibit the same characteristics and the values what it gives. We will compare with the stored values, and if it gives the same, if both are equal, then we can be assured that nothing has gone wrong with the ICs or nothing has gone wrong with the devices. Okay, so like this. So coming to sensors. Okay, so sensors, sensors are open and you cannot believe others and the people running around here and there and moving around here and there. At every time, so you can check, at every regular interval, you can check the sensor. Like this. So I'll tell you more about puff. You just see this one right now. Probably it's a bit confusing to you. So if you see the coming slides, it will be clear. So these characteristics will be exploited to implement puff. So it's a hardware root of trust. So we call it as digital fingerprint, and also it is called as hardware ID. Okay. So puff is a hardware ID. Okay. So just like the ID is what we call. So just like that, each and every hardware has got an ID. So that's called as puff. So it uniquely identifies a device. Okay, so it uniquely identifies a device. Suppose think that you got a sensors, multiple maybe 100 to 200 sensors are there in your network. Okay, and whenever it communicates, and that ID will be given, and that using that ID will be it will put a signature for the message. So that you can easily find out. So based on that ID as well as based on the puff function. So I'll tell you. You just it will be clear in within moments. So it's lightweight and it is cost efficient. Right from the beginning, I'm stressing this point. So sensors are tiny devices and they're energy constant devices. The conventional security algorithms cannot be applied for the sensor. So puff is a very good replacement for the conventional security algorithms. They are lightweight in terms of memory, in terms of cost also. Very so in terms of much memory there, of course, we need memory to store this puff function, but so not as much as the private. That's what I mean to say. So no additional hardware or softwares are required, so which are resource hungry. So for puff, that's the advantage of puff. No additional hardware or software is required. So software here is the algorithms, like security algorithms that can be correlated with the software. But here such things are not at all required actually. Now see this one. Single comparison. So you just see this one. So puffs. So puff is a function basically. Okay. So puff is a function, just like your C program. A simple C program. So it works on challenge response phase. We call it as CRPs. Okay, challenge response phase. So CRPs, the basically they are the inherent characteristics of the devices for the particular event. Okay, so they are the inherent characteristics of the devices for the particular event. So you just see this one, how these inherent characteristics will be extracted. And these CRPs, okay, so CRPs will be stored in the server for the future use. So in future, if the same hardware the same event, it should produce the same result. Okay, so hope it is clear with you. So challenge and response phase. Randomly we will put one challenge and we will give it to the hardware and we will check the response. If the response matches with the stored response in the server for that particular challenge, that means the hardware is safe. The sensor is safe. Okay, so that is what. And a challenge is given to Puff, which is stored in the hardware, and Puff executes that challenge. So collects the response from the hardware, and it will give that response as a result to the user. The received response is then compared with a CRP pair, which is stored in the hardware. A single comparison. Remember, in the last slide, I told you that. Okay, that was the last point in the last slide. Yeah. Next, more about SLAP. Puff functions are stored in the sensors, and Puff function works on CRPs, challenge response pairs. Okay. Now, question comes: how these CRPs are generated? Who will generate these CRPs? Challenge response pairs. So, who will give these CRPs? And it should be manufacturers. Okay. Manufacturers will give the CRPs, challenge and response pairs. And how they will get these CRPs? That is a very important question. What we should ask to ourselves: how these CRPs are generated? Okay, so now see this one. We got different methods for that. So one of the method is expressing the device voltages and finding the response. Now see this one. So at P voltage, so what is the response from the device? At Q voltage, what is the response from the device? And which voltage? What is the Y response? Hope you got my point. Okay. So for particular voltage, the behavior of your device will be particular only. Okay. The response will be unique. For P voltage, the response from your device will be unique actually. Always it will be something like so 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, something like. But this is for P voltage. And for Q voltage, it might be 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0. This is for Q voltage. If you expose your device after some years or after some days, if you give this P voltage to your device, it should give this output. Definitely something has gone wrong with your device. Okay, that's what. So unique digital fingerprint, what we call digital hardware ID, what we call it as. Okay, so like this, there are different methods. Okay, so voltage is one most commonly used method because almost all devices runs on uses voltage to run, and so that feature is exploited. So for P voltage, for Q voltage, for XYZ voltage, and all this. So like this, so while assembling, okay, while assembling the ICs in the sensors, so these challenge and response states will be collected by the manufacturers. And these CRPs, okay, so by the manufacturers, which was given by these manufacturers, are stored in the server in a safer place, and that we should secure. Okay, so that is the next thing. That's another research field. The securing these CRPs is another research field. Now, hope you understood these points. Okay, so puff function, which is storing in the which is stored in the device, works on CRPs. It receives challenge. It executes that challenge on the device. It collects the response, and from where these CRPs comes, manufacturers will give it. How it will be calculated? So simple one is voltage, varying the voltage and checking the response. Okay. Storing those responses. Definitely something has gone wrong. And these responses will be stored securely. Okay, so that we should put in the double quote, securely for future use. Now see this one. Now see this one. So this is a CRP table actually. So it is stored somewhere in a secured place. Okay. So CRPs we got here, right? So basically here 3 challenge response pairs are there. So this is 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so 3 response challenge response to it. So now think that your sensor, is deployed after 1 month. You are in doubt now whether sensor is working properly or what. You are in doubt that it is compromised. So this is the challenge. So in this case, you have chosen this, right? And that challenge is given to this device. And you can see this one in the device, we got a puff function. That puff function takes the voltage, it will give to the hardware, it will record the response, and that response will be given to you. And you will compare that response with the stored responses here. If it matches, definitely. So there is no threat for your device. And if it doesn't matches, definitely something has gone wrong. So what could go wrong? You just see this one. So we got a challenge and we got a response. Okay, so for P voltage, Q is the response. Okay, and that voltage is with respect to the ICs what you got, with respect to the logic gates what you got, oscillators what you have, the connections what you have, how much voltage they are using, and all those things. It is all correlated actually. Okay, now okay, that new IC will take some voltage, right? Then definitely the response voltage will be different. Okay, hope you got my point. Okay, so initially, so you got a response, that's the original ICs, whatever you got it. After some time, for some reason, some person has changed the IC, one of the IC in your sensor, and the same sensor is put into the network. Now what happens if you give a challenge, P voltage? Now because a new device is introduced, new IC is introduced there, you don't know how much voltage it occupies. The voltage changes there. Okay, the response changes. The voltage absorbed by that IC changes, and after that is one thing. A new IC is introduced. Another thing is, supposing that IC has been replaced with the counterfeit ICs. The original IC is removed. Okay, in place of that, counterfeit ICs are integrated. During coming manufacturing, and then so that means the real another some device, some motherboard or anything, some important thing to be sensor. So SIM module or something like that. SIM module or the something, some devices will come there. So it has been replaced with a duplicate module or duplicate ICs. Now what happens? So when you give a voltage, okay, so at the manufacturer side, because all are original, it would have absorbed some voltage and it would have given some results. Now, so because of new ICs or counterfeited ICs or duplicate ICs, the voltage absorption by those ICs are entirely different. Okay, counterfeit ICs are entirely different. Definitely the response changes. So that is the claim here. Okay, so at the manufacturer side, all ICs absorb some voltage and it gives some output. And once it is in the field, when it is what do you call, corrupted, or once it is the counterfeit ICs are and the response is compared, and the genuinity of the device will be found out. Okay, like that. And these CRP tables will not be stored in the device. That is a foremost thing what you should understand. In the conventional the security, what we did, we stored the private keys in the device. Remember that diagram? So we stored one key in the device itself. Now, only thing what you got in the device is puff function, a program which takes input, runs it, and gives output. Even puff function is hacked by someone, what you will get? Nothing, some exe program. So what the adversary can do there? So it will be stored in the trusted neutral place. That is, again, the trusted word. That is very subjective actually. So trusted neutral place, these CRPs, and nothing is stored in the device except the puff function. That is the important thing here. And puff receives the challenge, executes the hardware, gets the response, and passes the result to the calling function. That's all it will do. Nothing will be stored in the device. Nothing will be stored in the device except puff function. Puff function receives the challenge, okay, and it executes it, collects the response, it will give it back to you. Response is given by the manufacturer. So soon it will come. Okay, soon it will come. Now see this one, puff function. So we got different devices over here. So this is one PDA, what we got. So mobile, a smart watch, and a washing machine. Okay, so now see this one. So puff function is given to all these devices and a response is collected. You can see this one. This is response 1 from PDA, response 2 from mobile, response 3 as well as response 4 from smartwatch as well as washing machine. Okay, so different responses are collected and of course nothing should be equal. Okay, so R1 should not be equal to R2 and they should not be equal to R3. So there should not be any action sequence that is there because all those devices are different. All those ICs are different, right? If you give a P voltage here as an input, as a challenge to these devices, definitely response changes. Response will not be equal at all because ICs are different, the connections are different, oscillators are different, gateways are different entirely. And now see this one. The puff has got two features. The very first feature is uniqueness feature. It's already I explained in the previous slide. Supposing that we got a mobile, so we'll the sensors as well. So we got a puff function and a challenge is given here, right? So this is a challenge. Okay, so and this is the response. Challenge is given and the response is so here, the response R1 should not be R2. That is unique actually. R1 is unique and R2 is also unique. That is a uniqueness property of puff function. Next, so it is called as the reliable property. Okay, so reliable property means this is the same mobile what we are using. So here as well as here, so we are using the same mobile at the time t. So this device is exposed with one challenge. Suppose say challenge 1. Okay, C1. And the response is read. And after some time, so t plus n seconds, again the same device is exposed with the same challenge. The response is read. Almost equivalent R2. That's what we call it as almost equal. It should be equal sometimes because of the temperature also plays role there. Okay, so in the voltage response, R1 should be almost equivalent to R2. So reliable property, it is called as reliables at any point of time. No matter how many times it might be. So if you expose a sensor with the same challenge, it should give a same response. So that is hardware security. And these are all the puff types. So those who are doing research, and you can Google it. So okay, so especially from 2018 onwards, so many articles have come. Okay, so and this puff has been combined with in blockchain technology, these CRPs can be stored and secured, right? A secured word that can be stored. Okay, so and you can CRPs can nobody can touch that CRPs. Okay, so if blockchain comes in the picture, so earlier only CRPs was there. It was stored in trusted third party some server. Now that trusted third party has been removed and blockchain has been introduced there. Now CRP plus blockchain. It's a very good combination. Puff plus blockchain. And these are the different types of what people have explored. Okay, and so we got the implicit puff as well as explicit puffs, and we got a hybrid as well here. That's a good. So some puff SRAM failure puff, and DRAM puff we have, row hammer puff we have. So we got memory based puff, many memory based puffs are there. Okay. And also one more thing what you can observe here is optical puff, optical fiber puff. So the optical fiber uniquely it sends it reflects, okay, the optical signals actually, okay, uniquely it sends. That uniqueness is exploited to check whether the fiber, okay, so which is introduced in the campus or in any way the which is vulnerable is there. Replaced by some other person or what, okay, whether it is replaced by the third party people or what, that you can check. And CD as well, paper puff as well as CD puff. Can you see that? Each CD as well as each paper has got a unique, what do you call, unique circles in CD and unique, what do you call, particular name is there in paper. I'm sorry, I forgot that. It's a unique actually. Suppose if I send a paper to you by writing something, you can check it out whether the paper what I received is actually sent by me or what, or some other some other people, some other person has introduced some other paper with some other message. That is also true. So the thing is, if I say sensors, always you can go for memory based puff. Okay, memory based puff. And now, so SRAM puff. Okay, so static RAM. Okay, so SRAM stands for static random access memory puff. So it's a memory based puff. Okay, and each and every you can correlate with sensor. So sensor device has got a memory, and it's easy to, so we don't need any additional hardware. Only thing what we got is one puff function which receives challenge, executes that which receives the voltage, executes the rest of the sensor, give it back to you. And you need to check that response with the response stored in the blockchain or in the server. The practical and cost effective, it's very practical and it's very cost effective, and it's robust to voltage as well as temperature fluctuations. Even voltage is very high or very low, so SRAM no, it won't get spoiled or corrupted. Okay, temperature fluctuations as well. So memory based puff, so SRAM is one, SRAM failure puff is one. So we got DRAM. Already I told you that in the previous slide. DRAM access latency is very sensitive, and row hammer puffs as well. And so puff types. Okay, so I got another 10 minutes. Let me quickly finish it off. Then we can dedicate the rest of the time for the questionnaire. Okay. The puff types. So it's based on the robustness basically. So there are two types of puffs: so weak puff as well as strong puffs. So these are the differences. As the name itself indicates, it is weak because we got smaller number of CRPs. The challenge response space. So 10 to 20 or something like that, not more than that. So whereas in case of strong puff, so we got more number of CRPs. So that means in one of the article, the number of CRPs what authors have checked is nearly 21,000 CRPs. 21,000 CRPs. Just imagine how much voltage variations that author would have done it. Okay, checked it. It is vulnerable for the attack because we got hardly nearly around, for example, say 20. Hardly we got 20 CRPs. And for multiple exchanges, CRP exchanges definitely very, very vulnerable. So strong puff is invulnerable, and it's difficult to because we got 21,000 CRPs. Out of 21,000 CRPs, we randomly choose one challenge and one challenge, and it will be checked. It is very difficult to guess what is that CRP out of 21,000. It's very difficult. And the weak puff assumption is human presence is there, so it is secured in the environment. Environment is secured. And the assumption here is, so it may be in the random place. And SRAM, it will be in terms of MBs. So we can explore the response for the more voltages, okay, voltage variations. Whereas MBs, it's a bit difficult. Weak puff as well as strong puff. Now see this one. So it's a weak puff what I have showed in this slide. We got only two CRPs. Can you see this one? So this is one as well as this is, okay, only two CRPs are stored. So puff can be reused. It can be reused. Supposing that after 1 month you have used this puff CRP, and after another month you have used this CRP. So man in the middle attack. So that is one attack what commonly known as. So man in the middle attack can check it. Okay, so this is man in the middle attack. He can check the challenge and response frequently happening with the device as well as you, and always this hacker can hack the challenge and response. So only two CRPs are there. So always, so this attacker will come to know what is the challenge and what is the response. Next time, before the hardware responses, hardware gives responses. So this assume that the sensor is secured, but there is a man in the middle. And coming to the strong puffs, we just see this one. So we got, as I said, one of the article has used 21,000 CRPs. So here I've given some considerably large CRPs. And so after some time, you're in doubt with the sensor and you want to check whether sensors are good or what. So usually what happens is these sensors are given for survey. I mean, different people will come into picture in the real world for the test bed and all those things. So that's what it's. You need to check every now and then the genuinity of the hardware sensor. And then hardware and the response is collected. Now what happens? So in strong puff, we got enough CRPs. Okay? We have enough CRPs. So once we use any one CRP, so that will be marked here. So that means in future, so this CRP will not be used again. Even if the man in the middle, so let us say man in the middle is checking all those challenge and responses. So one time, so we have used this challenge. Okay, so man in the middle will check the challenge as well as this. So next time that man in the middle will store those keys and it will wait for the same challenge. But same challenge will never occur in future, right? So that is the thing. And in the next challenge response, in the next trial, so you can use this challenge and response and you can mark it as used. And next you can use this one and you can mark it as used and it can go something. You should have enough CRPs, that's what. And strong puff has got such so considerably large CRPs. Another thing is, so hashing actually. So these challenge and responses will be hashed. You can see this one. So here, the man in the middle attack, man in the middle. So though he gets some data from puff as well as from the in terms of challenge and response, so he cannot decode it. That is hashing. That is one thing is hashing. Okay. So encryption and decryption modules should be added in the IoT device or sensor devices, right? So encryption and decryption module should be added in this device, and that might add, okay, some more burden for the sensors. It might deplete energy for decrypting those challenge, right? It should be decrypted, right? And the response should be encrypted. That might not be acceptable. And it is memory expensive. That's what. And supply chain. So let me take this topic and let me wind up this session. So as I told you in the beginning, the most common place where the counterfeit ICs are introduced in the sensors are supply chain only. So there are many players in the supply chain. Okay, so and so one more thing what you should understand here is earlier the market was local. So now because of globalization, the international market is open to anywhere, like it is open. So that means more geographical area will be covered and more space is covered. And that means the attackers has got enormous space. Okay, so enormous space and they got a lot of chance, like basically. So may cost the reputation of the legitimate suppliers as well as a financial loss, right? So it may cost the reputation of a supplier, basically. It may cost the reputation of the manufacturers as well sometimes. And the tracking so those devices there, but still, even though tracking and tracing is there, we cannot ensure that the third party is secure. The suppliers, okay, so who moves from devices from one place to another place, that supplier himself, that we cannot trust those people. Okay, you never know. Though the employees, you never know how many people are there. Just see that. There comes help for that. So tracking. So what do you mean by tracking? The current position, okay, of the product, and tracing is right from the beginning, manufacturer to end user. So how it has come, the tracing, okay. So to where and all it went and all those. That's called as tracing. The cutting edge technologies like 5G and blockchain technology have eased the supply chain process. In turn, it has ensured genuinity of the products from manufacturers to end users. Now see this one, this is a supply chain ecosystem. So it's called as upstream communication. So we got a raw material. The supplier will purchase this raw material, and the supplier gives those raw materials to manufacturing plant. So where we can assemble basically, they will go to warehouse. So here different people comes into picture, and warehouse. These are all from warehouse to distributors. This is another threat, and wholesaler another threat, a retail outlet another threat, and here you stand. So before product reaches to you, you just see how many transfers it goes actually, how many handover happens. And now, so CRPs. So these CRPs will be given to the supplier, and the supplier can, this manufacturing plant can check. The manufacturing plant can use PERT to check the raw materials are good or what. Raw materials, the ICs what manufacturing plant purchases are genuine ICs or what. The first and foremost thing. So once the device is purchased, device is assembled, so it will be given to the warehouse, and from warehouse, this distributor will purchase it, actually take it out. And so these they are third party people. So this distributor will check the genuinity of the devices using PUF again, and will check whether the sensors what I've received so is genuine or what, using PUF function again, right? And now, so those devices comes to retail outlet, right? And again, retail outlet will use PUF function to check whether this wholesaler is cheating him or what. And at last, and you stand here, you will check using PUF function whether the brands what you're purchasing, sensors what you're purchasing, mobiles what you're purchasing, any electronic device for that matter is you come to know that the device what I'm purchasing is genuine actually. So that is what. So this is supply chain ecosystem. And now, so let us come back to the Bloomberg hardware hack. Okay. Suppose the PUF function was included in the Bloomberg hardware, okay, hardware purchase. Definitely puff function would have failed. Why? Because the foreign IC would have taken more resistors. Okay, it would have taken more voltage, and which would have changed the response value, right? Now say this one. So this LC would have taken so some more voltage actually. So without this, so actual voltage and actual response, the manufacturer what he has given. But in the supply chain, some IC has been introduced, foreign IC, and at the receiving end, if puff function is employed and puff function is applied to this hardware device, definitely. So the puff function would have failed actually, definitely. So that is the thing. Okay. So like this, we can avoid the hardware trojans. And so how to store the CRP tables? The earlier method was centralized database, and then people used to depend on trusted third party. So we call it as TTP. And some people went for cloud as well, and some people went one step ahead and they started encrypting. Okay, so the CRP itself they used to encrypt and they used to store in the CRP table, and sometimes they used to store in plain text only. And disadvantages are so single point of address, single point of attack. Centralized databases always these two are the threats: single point of failure and single point of attack. Centralized database, if that server itself is vulnerable, if server itself is attacked, single point of attack, then everything will be in standstill, right? Single point of failure as well. For example, server is down for some time, so you cannot, for some reason, say, if server is down for some time, so even you cannot fetch the CRPs and you cannot check the sensors into 980. And it's compromised if what would happen? So Petya, remember? So that is one malware which disturbed some part of the world, and 75 billion IoT devices. So for 75 billion IoT devices, uh, the response CRPs. Just imagine where to store those CRPs for 75 billion devices. That is a threat. I mean, not threat actually. That's a worry part. And for that reason, how to manage these things? So for that reason, people have come out with Puff plus blockchain technology. As I said just minutes back. So it's a very recent research. So my two scholars are working on this Puff as well as so how blockchain technology uh, you know uh, can be employed with that. So blockchain, it is distributed storage. That means no single point of failure as well as no single point of attack. In multiple places, data will be stored. And even if one place goes down, always other places are up. They can take up the responsibility. So blockchain is used to store CRPs. Okay. And blockchain is very much secured. You know that one, right? Blockchain is very much secured and it is safe and it is immutable. That means once CRPs are there, you cannot change it at all. And so access restrictions are also there. Access control is also there. Only registered users can access that. So that's about Puff and blockchain technology. And so hope you got something out of this, and the researchers out there. So you can take up this topic as your research. And always, if you have any doubts, you can contact me. Okay, and these are all the references what I have taken for this talk. Okay, with this, let me stop this session. Okay, and the session is questions.
Any questions from the participants? Thank you, Kiran sir, for your insightful presentation on security in sensor networks.
No problem, man.
On behalf of Department of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering, we thank you once again. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, ma'am. So I should thank you actually for inviting me and giving a platform for sharing my experience on PUF. PUF is a very recent research, so I request all the delegates to check and explore more in PUF. Okay. Just coming out. Okay, so that is what. So also I would like to say my heartfelt thanks to Professor Rajeshwari ma'am as well as BIT so for giving me the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Tomorrow the session starts at 10 o'clock with the same link. The participants can join. Thank you.
Thank you.
The feedback link will be shared in the chat box as well as in the WhatsApp group. Please do give your valuable feedback. Thank you, everyone.